This podcast is rated S for spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Don't forget to view our spoiler-free companion video on our Half Past Podcast channel on YouTube. Welcome to the Half Past Podcast. This is episode 25, the movie review of Creed. We will also be discussing the Revenant trailer. I'm Graham Ricks, and here with me is my friend and co-pilot, Ian Jones.
Hey buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, and you watched the movie good? You like it?
I did, yeah.
All right. We got a special guest today.
Let's introduce him.
There should be another voice. I'm not hearing him, though.
I'm still here, guys.
Special guest here, Marc Levi. Good
hey guys,
friend.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Let's go ahead and get right into the Revenant trailer. So, the first thing I have to say about this trailer is I'm actually kind of excited about it because I like Tom Hardy and Leonardo DiCaprio. Because, I don't know, I started liking them basically after seeing all their movies and getting better and better. I always love those guys, and it's kind of like reminds me of Inception, which is good.
I don't know. I wrote one word here, and that was hate. Because this seems like the kind of movie I would just hate. And I love both those guys. I get what you're saying.
Yep.
As long as there's something not covering Tom Hardy's face, I'm fine.
Well, yeah, that's terrible when that happens.
But I don't know. This just seems like an award-winning kind of thing, which I actively avoid.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like Hollywood's just banding together and saying, look, we got to get this guy an Oscar, so let's put a script together and get him one. And that's what it looks like. It looks like it's trying to be Oscar bait for Leo.
Yes, that's exactly what it looks like.
Awesome.
And to be honest, that's all I get out of the trailer. I see nothing that really looks appealing to me. It's not the kind of setting I'm interested in or any of that stuff, but not a movie I'd be unwilling to see. But
yeah,
right. That's those awards. It's like I'm not unwilling to see this. It's like I went and saw King's Speech because I got dragged to it
by
my family.
Man.
It was a great movie, and he got the Oscar for it. But still, it's like this isn't a superhero movie.
Well, obviously. And the other thing that I like about this movie anyway is they have Alejandro in here. What is his name? Iñárritu?
Nice.
He is one of the three amigos of cinema. He's with Guillermo del Toro and Alfonso Cuarón. And I've always liked those three guys, except Alejandro has always been the lower of the three, I think. It is nice that he is working with that one guy, Emmanuel Lubezki. And I think that's one thing that's good about this movie. It looks real pretty, and I think that's a credit to Lubezki. Anything else you guys got for this trailer?
No.
Other than the fact that you don't want to watch it because it's Oscar bait?
It's like one big metaphor, and that's what he's after during the movie.
There's one thing I'd like to add, and it isn't related to the Revenant.
Okay.
And that is, this Thanksgiving, I am thankful for Jessica Jones.
Nice. I have not watched an episode yet,
suck.
and I am excited about watching it, though.
Yeah, I'm one episode in. Definitely eager to dive deeper. Just haven't had time yet.
All right, now that we're done with this trailer, let's go ahead and get into the characters. So we're going to take a little break here. The illegitimate son of Apollo Creed, Adonis Johnson, finds Rocky Balboa to train and mentor him for the current #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. This movie is directed by Ryan Coogler, who also did Fruitvale Station, which is obviously where he knows Michael B. Jordan from. Starring Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Johnson, he was in Chronicle, Fruitvale Station, and the Fantastic Four, that fun movie.
Oh, yeah. The worst movie ever made.
He's a better actor than that movie makes him out to be.
Yes, you're right. And I apologize because I said that during when we did the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
That I was not sure if he was even a good actor because I couldn't remember anymore. He had like no lines in that movie.
Yeah.
But he is fantastic.
I just compare that to Samuel Jackson in any of the prequels. Like, this guy is a capable actor, just not according to any of this.
Oh, man. So he's is also starring Sylvester Stallone, of course, as Rocky Balboa. He was Rocky. He's been all the Rocky movies, Demolition Man, and Judge Dredd, where he takes the helmet off, which is disappointing.
Okay,
It's way worse than that new Dredd movie. I like that.
Okay, the new Dredd movie is really good. We always tell people that, and it is getting a sequel.
Which is awesome. I feel like I was a little piece of that, trying to push that sequel through.
Word of
I was
mouth.
telling everybody.
You know, we have to talk, too, about Over the Top, because that's just such a ridiculous movie. Truck driver turned arm wrestler.
I love it. I love that movie so much. It's so cheesy, but I love it.
Oh, that's great. Tessa Thompson as Bianca. She was in Veronica Mars, For Color Girls, and Selma. Felicia Rashad as Marianne Creed. She is obviously Claire Huxtable from The Cosby Show, and she was in a bunch of other TV roles and A Raisin in the Sun. Next up, we have Wood Harris as Tony Little Duke Evers. He was in Remember the Titans, The Wire, and he was also showed up in Dredd. Tony Ballou is Pretty Ricky Conlon, and he's actually just a real boxer. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
he hasn't been in any other movies. He's just a real boxer. And I actually cut out the other guy, so this is all I got for the characters.
Okay, that's all good.
We're gonna go. Yeah.
I was going to say his manager, Tony Ballou's manager in the movie, Graham McTavish, he was one of the hobbits. Or he was one of the dwarves from the recent Hobbit trilogy.
Oh, jeez.
And the whole time I'm watching him, I'm like, I don't recognize you, but every time your name pops up, I know that name, and where do I know it from? And then finally made the connection.
Those Hobbit movies, which you guys know my opinion of Peter Jackson, so I haven't seen any of them.
Yeah. But he was one of the dwarves I liked the most.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. All right, now that we're done with the characters, we're going to take a short break here, and we're going to go ahead and get deep into the quirks and likes.
All right.
All right, now we're into our quirks and likes section. So we'll go ahead and start with my quirks. Apparently we got some, so let's do it. The first quirk I have is definitely a personal thing for me, but somebody naming their kid Adonis really bothers me. That's just always bothered me. I'm really happy that they called him Donnie through the whole movie.
Does it bother you more than like naming your kid Ha Ha?
That is unfair, sir.
Okay, all right.
His real name is Hasid.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, I'm glad I learned something today.
See?
Right away, you're a fountain of knowledge.
Ha ha, Clinton Dix. That's fantastic.
Every time you laugh, you're saying his name.
Pretty much. The only other quirk here, so I hope you guys will help me out because I was struggling for quirks.
Oh.
So the only other quirk I hear is that it's a little long, but that kind of just happens with dramas in general. They go a while, and that's kind of how it feels in this one.
Yeah.
So what about you, Jones?
You know, the thing which I have to get in there because I kept forgetting to write it down was that he loses that car at the beginning of the movie.
Oh yeah.
And that's like such an obviously big thing because he never gets it back. And in fact, it never even comes up again.
Yep. And
Then he
that's
just
the same
loses
thing
his ride.
that happened to John Wick that you mentioned.
Right, yeah. That's exactly right. The car never comes back up.
Yep.
What the hell happened to that car? I mean, we know that it went with that other fighter, but
Yeah.
is that what the sequel is going to be about? Like that guy gets his jaw back, right? So, all right. Let's see. I was kind of disappointed that he had this background as a financial planner and that he was living in a big ass house.
Oh yeah.
While doing the underground boxing thing. Like, that doesn't feel real Rocky to me. And I get that he had, like, the foster care at the beginning. And, he had, like, a troubled youth. But then he had it pretty nice. So...
Yep, he was living in Creed's house.
Yeah, that's not really Rocky-ish.
He's willing to throw it all away.
Yes,
throw it
I know.
all away, yep.
How irresponsible. Conlon's story, to me, sounded like a wink at John Jones.
Really?
John Bones Jones. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the number one pound-for-pound fighter.
Yep.
Who gets into a lot of trouble and may never fight again.
Yes.
So, and unfortunately, that's kind of like how it is with a lot of these fighters.
Yeah,
which was,
one thing about this movie is they definitely made it realistic in that instance.
Right,
because these guys get into trouble all the time, and and some of them have to do some time. And that's actually one of the things I thought was interesting about this movie when they did the whole HBO real sports scene. I thought that was pretty cool because it just made it more realistic.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say that's one of my quirks was that hopping in and out of the documentary style bit in the beginning, especially, it's just to get a lot of exposition about, Conlon. But then when they do, and I think they do it like 3 times throughout the movie where they, freeze frame and here's this guy's fighting record. And I'm like, that's just, it really stands out because then it gets left out for so long. It just felt like the whole directing style got a little different in those parts.
Yeah.
The only thing I like... go ahead.
It just gets some of that key info out and not make the movie longer by having to explain it. But then sometimes I wonder, had you not spent that time on the first 2 guys that they did it to, couldn't you have just spent the time telling Conlon's story a little more?
Yeah.
And been more consistent with his style.
That's a pretty good point. I really liked the look in the second gym that they were training him at. Like, that had like a Rocky feel to it.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed a little weird to me that he wouldn't be training at Mighty Mix. Like, because that's what you would expect. But, I get the way that they were telling the story. It makes sense that he would end up, not training there. He's got an opponent there, and obviously it's a huge distraction.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's like the iconic place you would think about. It just doesn't even look the same anymore.
No,
it's obviously like not the same place.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember what was the history with Mighty Mix Gym, because I know, like, I thought it had completely shut down in one of the movies. I can't remember which. And then I don't know what the status of it had been. You'd think if it was back up and running. I mean, clearly someone's cleaned it up and kept the name, but I would have assumed he might have had something to do with it, but I guess not.
Yeah. The last thing I have here is at the end of the movie, and this isn't just a Creed thing, this is in a lot of movies, and it bugs me, is that Adonis is bleeding from everywhere, and at the end of the fight, he's got like this pristine pearly whites smile going on. And it just irritates me. And it reminded me of like Jurassic World, where like Chris Pratt is running around. He's on a motorcycle. He's training raptors and chasing him through the jungle and crap, and he's covered in filth, but his teeth are perfect. And like, this is a huge problem in Hollywood. It just doesn't make any sense for the character.
They have to show the pearly whites.
Damn it. That would be like Jack Sparrow having a perfect smile.
Oh,
like, it just takes you out of the movie.
Oh, man.
All right, so that's it for me.
All right, your turn, Mark. What you got?
All right. Tony Little Duke Burton, the trainer from the same gym that his father worked at, that, was responsible for him losing his car. The name threw me off because Tony Burton was the name of the actor who played Apollo's trainer.
Yes.
But Duke was his character name. So they mashed it all up and made this character named after the actor and the character.
Well, that's weird. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. He's Tony Little Duke Burton.
I thought he was,
I guess, playing his son.
I could have sworn it was Little Duke Evers. But that's weird. Okay.
No, maybe I'm wrong, but that's how IMDb had listed his name.
All right.
And it's just funny. It's like, this is one of those things where, I guess with the exception of Rocky's kid, everyone just does what their dad did.
Yeah.
You've got a genetic profession that's being passed down.
Yeah.
So
much.
I mean, I loved the fact that he was incorporated and Tony Burton's still around. So part of me wanted him to make an appearance, but figured there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
The other two things were pretty minor. It's a Rocky movie. There's going to be training montages, and all that, and this had more than one. And for the most part, I think they lived up when you saw them working out in the gym together, and they're playing with the bag side by side. I mean, it felt great. But then it got to the one where he's running around the neighborhood, and the little bikes are following him around, and it just felt like they were trying to be very symbolic of, the old Rocky running up to the museum.
Yeah.
And then in Rocky 2, he's got half the town chasing after him. And then this one's like, if that's what you were trying to be up to, it felt a little short.
Yeah.
Like that could have been better, but at the same time I realized it was that moment and the one kid from that group that made him proud to acknowledge who he was and not what he had been doing, which was hiding his identity.
Yeah. So
I was hit or miss as far as like to how did I feel about it as it was happening.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when I was watching it, I thought that sequence could have been done better. So I agree with you.
And then the last just minor quirk was during the final fight, after he got knocked down and had his little mental boost in energy, and popped back up, they play a brief snippet of the Rocky theme.
Yes.
The fighting theme.
Yep.
And I didn't know if that was a good decision or not, because it totally took me out of the scene. It's like, hey, wait a second, now I'm just, thinking about the movie, and I'm like, but that's Rocky's personal theme. That wasn't music for other people.
Yeah.
And I almost would have rather them come up with a musical bit that was just his, or just leave it out.
Yeah.
Because we'd gone the whole movie without a musical cue tying back to it, I think. And so part of me was like, oh, I get to hear the music again.
Yeah.
And then other parts were like, oh, but I'm totally out of the movie for this brief moment.
Yeah,
So.
I had the same feeling when it popped up. I was like, oh, there's the music coming, and it feels like it was a little forced. So I get it.
Yeah. I was trying to think of other movies where that may have happened, but nothing was coming to mind.
All right, everybody done with their quirks? All right, let's go ahead and start with the likes. I had quite a few. So the first thing I want to say is I enjoyed the way that they introduced the fighters with their records. And I think that when the shot pops up and you get to see all their records, there's something very revealing about that to all these characters, because you'll have, especially at the end of the movie where you finally see Conlon's, because the way he enters into the ring is like really badass. Like it's like ridiculous how crazy it is. It's almost like he's Vader walking out. And when it pops up and you see that his record, he's undefeated and he's won like 37 fights, it was definitely very moving when that happened. And I think it's like that, and they use it as a comic relief and earlier in the movie because they realize that this other guy that he ends up getting knocked down by is also just really good, and it really shows you that he's just not ready yet. And so I like that. The other thing I have is I thought the cinematography of the movie was actually really well done, and I really enjoyed how they filmed the fight sequences. They put you right into the fight, and that's something that I haven't really seen a lot in the other Rocky movies, and I think that was a credit to this director and the cinematographer. And it was like there was a lot of just single shots kind of thing without cuts, so there was a lot of tension in the scene, and it felt great to watch it, and it was just exciting. And they didn't hide the brutality of it. They even showed those really terrible scenes of being like blood splitting into the thing and like wiping the blood off the canvas. And I really enjoyed that part of the movie.
Yeah, the first fight scene really is done in one cut.
Yeah,
which is pretty amazing.
And it's beautiful. Yeah, it is a beautiful shot.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought that the choreography was really good in this movie. I found myself, when I was watching it, feeling like I was watching an actual boxing match. And there were certain things that was happening, for instance, in that first fight, where he kept getting hit on his left side. And that was because of his style of boxing. He had his left hand was hanging. And I kept wanting to yell in the theater, keep your hands up, because it was like a really cool thing, because I could see him not quite ready yet and seeing him actually make these mistakes that he fixes over the course of the movie. And I thought that was just really good. I really credit the choreography of the fight scenes. They did a really good job. The other thing I like about this movie is I really did like the parallels of Donnie fighting for his name and Rocky fighting cancer. Like, I thought that was just a really cool thing to put in, to have both of them, and even have the montage where Rocky's still fighting. It's just for something else. And I thought that was just a really great part of the movie. And seeing the montage of him fighting cancer and then Donnie training, it's different from the other montages that you're used to in the Rocky series. And I just really enjoyed that one. I also enjoyed the homage to the old movies, like when he's chasing around the chicken. I thought that was a really cool sequence, and I really think that they had a lot of that in there. And I like the fact that they had, like, I don't like the fact that Paulie's gone, but it is nice to see that they continued the story on with him seeing Paulie and him talking about his son in Vancouver, because this is a series and they definitely showed how it moved forward with Rocky. The other thing is Stallone, I think, does a really good job in this movie. And I like how while he's fighting cancer, he's like losing his hair and he ends up with a beanie. So he ends up just looking like Mick by the end of the movie.
Huh.
Which I thought was just really cool.
Yeah.
The last thing I have is I like that he loses. I like that he loses because you're expecting him to win, because they always win. You know, it's like, for the most part, they always win.
Well, yeah.
And it's just nice to see that he lost, and I like that it was a split decision, because the fight was so close. And Ian and I, you definitely know that you have to take the belt from the champ. You cannot do a split decision and get the belt. So it was fitting. And
that's never going to happen in fighting.
No, you got to take it from the champ. Yeah. There's no other way to do it. That's all of my likes, man. I had a lot of likes. I really enjoyed the movie. So what do you got, Jones?
I think some of the things that you were alluding to, of course, how they filmed all the fights. I really liked the little calling cards that they did. I thought Mark made a pretty good point about those. The one thing I thought of, though, is, you know, they're really adding little things into this movie from a fighting mentality that I think maybe a lot of people might miss if they aren't a fan of boxing, or, you know, if they don't follow the UFC like we do.
Yeah.
But to me, like, that made me think, you know, hey, he's doing research on these guys.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's following them on YouTube, and, you know, he's like scouting them a bit. There were a lot of nice little touches that I really like, for example, having Stitch in there, you know, as his cut man. Stitch is the best. He's like the most popular cut man in the industry.
Yeah, he's actually a cut man, and he's very good.
You know, I like that his first fight, which is in Mexico, they're in a basement hallway sharing the same space, because we know, which is crazy. A lot of times fighters in these smaller promotions, they get ready in like the same dressing room, which is crazy every time I see that.
Yeah,
but I mean,
weird.
that's just like that's the reality of it. So I guess the thing I really liked about this was that they had a lot of nice little touches. And, you know, you mentioned the split decision. I hate decisions. I really hate split decisions.
I know you do.
But it's absolutely realistic that the champ is going to get that nod, because that's just how the judges always are. You have to beat them. You know, you just have to absolutely dominate them. And losses aren't a big deal. And, you know, a lot of people were talking to me after Ronda lost recently. It just isn't the end of the world. You don't learn things by winning every fight.
No, you don't.
So I really liked it from a fighting aspect. And I guess my last is, to me, this felt like watching Rocky again. You know, I really felt like, you know, this is much better than the last ones they've been doing. This is a really cool reboot, if you could even call it that. Like, it just felt like, you know, this is a great way to introduce this to a younger generation.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for me.
All right, Mark. So what are your likes?
Well, as a lot of the stuff that you guys have been pointing out, I mean, this movie really does live up to the Rocky legacy. I know one of the fears that I had, you know, in anticipation for this movie coming out was, oh, is it just going to be some kind of cheesy handoff? They're just going to have Stallone show up and pass the torch. But really, it followed suit exactly like I'd want. His character was really given, I think, the treatment that it deserved, especially considering that the movie was written and directed by a totally different set of people. You know, Sylvester Stallone had written every single Rocky movie 1 through 6, and the only one he hadn't directed was the first one. So I was a little worried in anticipation that a different set of people would maybe have a really different feel, but in the end, it really just lived up and paid homage to everything that's come before in a really brilliant way. So that was something that really made it that much easier to fall in love with this movie. And you know, when you look at the actual story, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, you know, plot-wise that mirrors Rocky 1. You know, once, as sort of what you guys alluded to before, when he really kind of leaves the riches behind and starts with very little once he moves to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
There, you know, from that point, it's, you know, find a trainer, convince him that you're worth his time, you know, fall in love with the girl kind of thing. And, you know, the one area where it kind of deviates a little bit is, you know, Mickey was kind of warning him how much, you know, a girl can distract the fighter from their training, but Rocky, having lived through all that and knowing how critical Adrian was to his life, you know, really supported Donnie throughout the story in that respect. So while there were a lot of stuff that mirrored aspects of Rocky 1, I think it was handled differently enough to really stand out and really kind of honor that legacy.
Yeah.
And then as you were talking about the choreography to the fights, I mean, man, that, especially that last one, was the most brutal looking boxing match I've seen in a Rocky movie.
Yeah.
There was no appearance of like, using the camera angle to hide a shot and not have to connect. I mean, every hit looked so painful.
Yeah, and when I was in the movie theater, the whole time sitting around people are reacting to the hits. They're like, "Ooh,
yeah,"
So it was very well done in that respect.
And it makes me almost wonder because you've got Conlon, who's a real boxer, who's used to really hitting the people, and now it's like, well, try not to wreck his face, but you're really going to be hitting him. So, I mean, it was just handled great, especially when you're talking about a legacy of, this isn't their first go-around as far as a Rocky movie and the choreography of a fight, but it was handled brilliantly.
Yeah.
And I guess the last point, and you guys also sort of hinted at this earlier, is this really felt like the legacy was honored, and in that sense, I want this to be. I don't know if I want this to be Rocky 7, with a new title and just be another one that's going to continue, or I don't care if this is Creed 1, but I want it to be part 1, and I want more in the future. These characters, whether it's Balboa, who I want to see his story continue until whenever that comes to an end, or just the way, Adonis Creed was handled, just bring on more. I want this to be one of those movies where, it's the second week in the box office and they're announcing the next sequel already. Just keep them coming and I'll keep going because I love it.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
But that's it. Anything else I would bring up is kind of just repeating what you guys have said.
All right, so you want to go ahead and rate this thing then?
Yeah, let's rate this sucker.
All right, so I think it's filmed well. It has a great story. The performances, I think, are great too, and it's definitely well deserving of the Rocky series. So I say see it, buy it.
I'm also going to say see it, buy it, and I hope they remember Stallone when it comes to award season.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's that good in it.
He is really good at it, man.
Yeah, I believe he won Best Actor when the first Rocky came out, and the Rocky sequels kind of started going in a different direction story wise, and then when Rocky Balboa came out, I mean, some of his acting in that was phenomenal, and I think this one just continues it. So I loved it. As a guy with a Blu-ray set of all the Rocky movies out there, it's absolutely a see it, buy it, love it, rewatch it, all of it.
All right, so let's go ahead and sign out. If anybody wants to contact us and tell us our opinions are terrible, or send some hate mail or some love mail. I like love mail too.
Or blackmail, which is my favorite kind of mail.
We always have our website, halfpasspodcast.com.
Like us on Facebook.
Rate us on iTunes.
We're on Stitcher and Libsyn.
And you can always email us at halfpastcast@gmail.com. That's halfpastcast@gmail.com.
Tweet us at halfpastpodcast.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. Later this week, we're going to try to squeeze in The Good Dinosaur.
Yes. I'm finally feeling up to it, so
wow.
I'll go sit with a bunch of little kids.
Oh, that's great. And I also want to thank our guest here, Marc Levi.
Thanks,
Hell yeah.
guys. It's been a blast. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yep, it was good to talk this one through, because I know you're a Rocky fan. So.
Oh, yeah.
And we're all Star Wars fans, so I hope we see you on that one, too.
Absolutely.
Let's just skip the next 16 or 17 days already.
I know. Oh, it's agony waiting for Star Wars, man.
Yeah. Someone get me a DeLorean.
This is the Half Past Podcast. I'm Graham Ricks.
Jonesy.
See you next flick.